So without further ado, I do trust that all of you are doing great. We want to welcome today back all of our forum friends that were with us from the onset, from the beginning, from the start. And we are equally as happy to welcome all the participants for this professional development session today as we prepare ourselves to start an unprecedented school year. We want to focus on well-being so that we can reunite with our educational community, so that we can renew and we can thrive with our students, with our teachers. And because of something that we have learned throughout the pandemic is that there is no learning without well-being. So for those of you who are new, wanted to tell you a little story about our forum. It initiated back during the pandemic when we were all sort of scrambling to come together and build community to face the challenges in the educational sector, not only the challenges, but also the opportunities. And we come from the mindset that, and I'm gonna read you this quote, that every crisis has a very creative solution and the seed of a creative opportunity is in every adversity. So with that in mind, we reached out, and our little forum that was a small baby has been nurtured and started to grow from people from all over the globe that come together and share their different perspectives. From our common humanity, we learn from each other. And this is why at Whole Schools, in an effort to serve our mission, and we can go to the next slide, Gabs, please. This professional development session has been designed in order to share best practices with you that we have found specifically now during the pandemic, and that we are very happy to share with you from our experience lived with different schools. Myself, I am Andrea Ferrari, and together with my colleague Gabriela. Next slide, please, Gab. Thank you.
Hi.
No, you're great. I know that you're multitasking. Together with Gabriela, we're at Whole Schools creating all sorts of different opportunities for you. And I think our forte is bringing people together and giving back to our schools for the betterment of education. And here she is, the lovely Gabby. I have only but deepest gratitude for her and helping put all this together. You'll soon see we have prepared a wonderful learning journey for us today. So welcome one and welcome all. Gabby's going to tell you a little bit about the structure of our session.
Yes, we want to be very mindful of the time and take advantage as much as possible. We know it's a Saturday. You've been very generous of taking time from a weekend to concentrate on this, but we do think it's important, and the objective is just give us a chance to reflect on the coming school year. In the case of Mexico, we're starting very soon, and we're all concerned about what this, this is going to look like. So to do so, we've done this three-part session. First, we're going to talk about a case study about schools here in Mexico who tried out different solutions for this times during quarantine, and then we're going to break into small groups. You will have a leader per group to work together and just enrich from the experience of everyone. The richness of what we've experienced through the forum is exactly that, just talking about common experiences and different learnings at different points in the world. So that will be very interesting. And we will close off with our panel of experts that we've invited, and who can share with us also very interesting strategies that we can all take back into our schools and just guide us and help us along. We're still getting people who are arriving. So
let's not forget to mention, Gabby, that we are recording the session for everyone. Some people that are not able to be here today. And also we want to be able to share that back with you, and you'll be able to find it on our webpage. Also on Facebook, we want to put some vignettes, little snippets of videos of the great stuff that is shared today, and we hope that everyone's okay with that. If you aren't, please send us a little private message right now, and we'll know to leave you in specific out of those testimonials or the wording or the visuals that we're going to share. Okay, so
yes, and the material will be available for everyone, so don't worry.
Hola.
We will,
dime.
Welcome. So we will convert the file, and
I'm not sure whose microphone is unmuted, but
A ver,
somebody
dame
there
dos, porque Fusini es...
is having a side conversation.
Okay, so
Okay.
everyone, you will have available all the materials, so don't worry about it. And even the group discussions, you know, the whatever is constructed in the small groups, we will also have it there. So that will be that. So to not delay anymore, we're going to start with our case study. The first part of our session is, in this case study, we all went through the same, well, in different ways, but similar, where distance learning became a new experience for everyone, and we struggled with it in different ways, and we wanted to start with that reflection and sharing the trial of these two schools. Before that, we found this amazing video we wanted to share with you. We thought it was very interesting from the student's perspective. This film was made by a Canadian student, a 15-year-old, and she did it to be able to express what she felt that the quarantine and the whole process during the pandemic was for her as a student. So I'm gonna really hope
Also,
the technology gods that this will work and the sound won't be a problem. If you see that you can't hear it or something, please let us know, okay?
And as you watch it, don't be mindful of the details that surround her, because a lot of it takes place without sound. So it's part of the title of the film, which is Numbness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and
looks good and sounds good, Gab.
oh, thank God. Oh.
Do like a burst and then I'll jump. Okay? I love being a
Wow. That's truly, truly powerful. The first time I watched that, I watched it with my girls, and it really drove the message home. And this young woman, Liv, her video went viral. It's had over 100,000 views because it portrays something that it portrays a feeling, right? The feeling of being isolated, being young and isolated from your former life, being separated. And she called it a civilized apocalypse, what we were all living through. And she explored these feelings of isolation and how those affected their mental health as students, and ours, of course. I want to give you one of her very beautiful and powerful sentences. She talks about connection, and she says, "To be alive is to be with each other." So that leads us to our next point about the fundamental and critical element about connection as we think about the year ahead of us, and how we want to take this forward, bringing well-being into the center of everything we do, so that our students can be better learners and be centered.
Yes, and also within her video, which is beautiful, if, we're going to send you the link if you want to look at it more closely, because it's full of details. It talks a little bit about the different losses that as students, and I think we all in a way also shared. It doesn't matter where you are. I mean, she's in Canada, but I did the same as Andrea. I shared it with some people, and everybody was impacted with feeling how it resonated with them, no? And the losing of activities, the losing of connection with friends, definitely the overwhelming academic work that students felt, you know, receiving all this information through technological means, and then yes, maybe receiving messages, you know, asking to take care of themselves and be well and be happy and safe. But the most ironic thing, and this is, I think, the biggest frustrations for us as educators, is although we do wish our students to be happy and to be safe, they really did not feel that way through the quarantine, or there's a big number of them who felt this frustration that she interpreted in the video. So that contrast, I think, is the biggest thing that we are concerned. And this is something that we need to think about as we face this coming months, where we want to find ways so that they do feel connected and they do feel that we care and we are, you know, sensitive to what's going on in their emotional well-being.
So with that in mind, I think today is about bringing to you what we do best at Whole Schools, which is just finding best practices all over the world. And we were extremely lucky, and I fully believe that when you nourish the universe, it nourishes you back, and things just aligned, that we came about this very powerful solution. And we worked around it with 2 different schools in Mexico City. And it's designed based on artificial intelligence that is able to measure. And through the data that it drives, it's incredible, because it's based on the 4 dimensions of well-being, designed by who? By all the research behind the OECD, their PISA studies. And so we've got the 4 main components of well-being that we deal with every day: academic well-being, social and emotional well-being, the social relationships and that connection piece that we just looked at, and of course our physical well-being. Even though it's last, it's certainly not the least, and we know how that has a very deep impact on our students' performance. So we wanted to share with you this very innovative way to connect with students, and how we did it through the pandemic, supporting 2 of our schools. So in the first dimension, as I said, academic learning, we have the 4 different key indicators, which talk about, you know, whether students have enough materials to study, what kind of support they're getting at home, what sort of environment, because we know that it's different for everyone, and how that affects the way that they're learning. And we found at our schools that certainly self-study was the one that was lacking or suffering. Important to mention that the readings that you see on the metrics here were taken, yes, throughout a period of time, whereby on a weekly basis, we were working with the schools, figuring out interventions that would help to better the measures. Amazingly, that the artificial intelligence and the data that it drives is in real time. which actually enables us as educators, as teachers, first and foremost, to interact with our group. How so? Because we are giving them an opportunity to be heard, in order for us to amplify their voice, is what I'm trying to say. When we amplify student voice, we really hear what their needs are and not the ones that we assume that they have. And then we can bring this back by creating opportune and proactive intervention. So as you can see on the little graph on the left, the blue line indicates our group, the class that we worked with, and how it's, you know, flowing and picking up here as the interventions are led on a weekly basis. So this is self-study, and in the realm of self-study,
one thing that was important, I'm sorry.
Abby, go ahead.
When we were talking, yeah, when we were talking about self-study, I think it took everyone by surprise. I mean, we were used to working with students in class, you know, monitoring their learning experiences. And when everybody had to go through distance learning, of course, it was a surprise to see, you know, how unprepared some of the students were and how they were struggling with that. So figuring it out and seeing which ones were struggling and how to help them is, I think, really, it was essential for this area of well-being. After that, of course, we have the second area, which is social emotional skills, which is essential. And here again, according to these two schools, the ones that they struggled most with the social skills, where it had to do with dealing with the frustration and dealing with all of the handling of anxiety, stress. They don't know how to do this, or they don't know to do it at the level that this pandemic and the quarantine demanded of them. So they did struggle very much. And if you can look at the graph on the left, you can see how they, of course, there were students who had these skills, but many had to receive help from teachers and specific strategies to help them little by little start, you know, increasing, as you can see here in the graph, and how it got, you know, I mean, it didn't get 100% there, but it started to move up and improve. All right. And so in the little, I'm sorry, the little stoplight, you have the red, the green, and the yellow, and that's where slowly by little by little it started to improve. And of course, you always do have setbacks. That's why you have the little arrow where some of us will sometimes be better or decrease a little bit because of what was going on at that time.
I think it's important to mention that as we're measuring students, we're measuring them anonymously, because there is a deep respect to each student's identity, and that they might not feel vulnerable in front of their group or the class. So the metric is very precise, because it'll tell you, you know, how many of the children in your group are responding, and if there's as much as one or two that are down, then you know that you need to address as much those that are down as much as those that have gone up. And I think in this realm of social emotional dimension, we were developing very, very deeply the part of self-awareness. And if you want to go to the next one, Gabby, in self-awareness, we know that when we empower children to learn about themselves better by figuring out how they feel, they come to know who they are. And that's when we enable them to better relate to others. Knowing myself well will help me to relate to others in my group and my class. And this brings me to communication, which communication with teachers was one of the aspects that was suffering greatly in the beginning, because you know, it's hard enough to keep the rapport one-on-one with students. Imagine on the remote arena. We really didn't know, as we were thrown into this, how we would be able to keep track. So having the artificial intelligence enabled our teachers now to have this one-on-one opportunity to talk to their kids and to really make sure that they were addressing those needs, creating this dialogue and having a two-way channel that would really lead to enhance those communication skills and make for learning a much better experience. So, and last but not least, Gabby, if you want to show them the physical dimension, because I think that physical well-being is just as important.
Before we get to the physical well-being, one thing that did happen with the communication with teachers is when the teachers addressed directly with them, look, we've seen that Some of you are expressing difficulty with stress or anxiety or feeling isolated and all this. Automatically, just the fact that the teachers acknowledged what was, what the information they were receiving, and just being able to talk about it, like Andrea said, in an anonymous way, it was much more comfortable for them, because then they would feel more like saying, yes, I know, some of us can be feeling stressed, and beginning with the fact that what I wrote in answer of I'm feeling stressed, knowing that others felt the same, it was very liberating for them. And then not only that, but being able to then talk about, well, yes, it can be difficult, and just addressing it, it automatically just, I think it was one of the curves that increased the most. It was the easiest way to do it, because honestly, it just opened up the conversation and just helped with that. And even they tried with journaling their feelings, for what Andrea was saying about the self-awareness. And it just really taught about the opening the channel of communication. I think that was that's why it grew the most and the fastest, right?
Yeah. And the last indicator, which is physical well-being, I think the communication component was really helpful there, because we know that physical health is just as important and contributes to emotional wellness. So teachers were able to see information relating to whether or not the students had slept well or had good eating habits, and promote this whole concept of self-care, especially particularly with older students. We found that it was intrinsically motivating for them to learn about themselves, learn good habits that instill good health and that promote a good lifestyle. So starting from that, which seems so obvious and so basic, and something that should come from the home, well, guess what? It's also our duty to, interfere, or rather not interfere, but rather promote this wellness starting from the core. And this is why we work with the whole child, and not just the academics. And we prize well-being, because well-being will lead to great results academically.
Mm-hmm.
So
And we thought it was important to sum up a little bit of what this experience was. And I think the teachers that we worked with, they were very happy, and it was just very simple, these three conclusions. One was receiving feedback on student emotional situation was key. It was really interesting, because although they, for example, you might think that your students are feeling one way, but once they were receiving the information, sometimes they were surprised. So I didn't think that they would struggle with this, and they are, or the opposite. No, I would have imagined this would have been difficult, and it turns out that that part was okay and was well taken care of. So that was very helpful, I think. And when we would sit down with them to design the interventions, the work was really really successful.
And then in the middle here, we're talking about, again, breaching that feeling of isolation. I take you guys back to the video, to live, and that feeling of being alone. So amplifying student voice, again, and collecting this data through the artificial intelligence enabled the teachers to take a step outside of isolation and go into that very personal realm with their students.
Yeah, and the part, if you remember in the part of the video where Liv would receive really kind emails where they would say about, I hope you're well and safe. And yes, but it sounded one way. In this way, we discovered that, opening up spaces for kids to share how they were feeling, and just, or telling them that they're aware and that they're being, very visible to their teacher, just made a difference. And it did transform that lack of connection that Andrea was mentioning, no?
And
so
finally, as Gabi was saying, creating timely interventions was the key, right? Because if you have real-time feedback, it helps to impact the short term of how the students are living the experience, and correcting their experience throughout in a timely fashion makes sense. Not only for the school, for the teacher in the classroom, but for the school and for school leaders to plan early intervention proactively, instead of reacting when problems already arise, when the children are already depressed, or when there's been bullying happening. So all those things that allow us to impact short term are super powerful. And again, we acknowledge the innovation in this artificial intelligence and what it enables us to do.